This is GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW flyers. That is 2-3 page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 398, entitled Masculisting Male Feminists with Feminist Girlfriends. Description. This flyer claims that one of the major stepping stones that will cause widespread recognition of masculist biconscious ideas in society will be the failure of millions of relationships between biconscious male feminists and their monoconscious feminist girlfriends. When millions of such men walk out on these girlfriends, that will trigger a mass painful reaction on the part of these women, which will cause a strong media soul-searching, thus bringing biconscious knowledge of masculist ideas to women and to society, leading then to the menfairing of the gender laws, the legislation of the para, etc. The flyer itself. Masculisting Male Feminists with Feminist Girlfriends by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. This flyer talks about a situation that will probably occur millions of times around the world a couple of years from now, when male feminists who have feminist girlfriends discover masculism and have their gender political views turned on their heads. What impact will that masculist religious conversion have on their relationships with their feminist girlfriends? I'm predicting that this masculist conversion will have a catastrophic effect on their relationships, causing most of them to explode, as these recently converted male feminists become biconscious. That is, they have both their feminist and their masculist consciousnesses raised, and then have to deal with the monoconscious attitudes of their feminist girlfriends. I see this going two ways, essentially. Either the feminist girlfriend herself becomes biconscious by listening and absorbing the masculist rhetoric of her boyfriend, agreeing with the idea that women oppress men too, that gender oppression is a two-way street. And yes, the divorce courts are toxic for men and have to be reformed. And yes, the para, that's paternity rejection right, should be legislated. That men lack the para and women have the mara is the most blatant form of sexual discrimination that exists. That moral pressure should be put on young 16-year-old girls to choose analytic majors at high school so that they become career competent as adults and not expect fluffy style to be able to parasite off the money and labour of a man. If she becomes biconscious, then since her boyfriend is also biconscious, then there should be a much higher degree of gender political harmony between the two than if the feminist girlfriend rejects the masculist rhetoric of her boyfriend. If the feminist girlfriend remains monoconscious and feels threatened by the masculist views of her boyfriend, then she risks being seen by her boyfriend as an MFB. That's a masculist term for monoconscious feminazi bigot. If she sticks with the view that feminism has taught her her whole life that gender oppression is a one-way street, that is men's oppression of women, then to be told the reverse, that is, to be presented with masculist ideas that tell her that, in fact, women oppress men worse than vice versa, that women's oppression of men is usually continuous and, in capital letters, lasts decades. For example, women's financial parasitism, women's manslavery, women's fluffy feminist hypocrisy in the divorce courts, women's many decades-lasting gender crimes against men. For example, paternity fraud, where in about 5% of pregnancies the husband is not the father. And pill lying, where the wife/girlfriend lies to her husband/boyfriend that she's taking the pill, but isn't. Gets pregnant, then forces the man to pay for a kid he doesn't want, thus manslaving him for decades. Then all this masculinist rhetoric may simply be too much for her, so her brain rejects it. She suffers cognitive dissonance and feels profoundly threatened that her core gender political feminist beliefs are being vigorously challenged by powerful masculist arguments. If the feminist girlfriend is rather conservative and not terribly bright, then she will not have the openness of mind to be able to absorb such masculist ideas quickly, and will suffer cognitive dissonance, as she has to rearrange her brain to cope with a new gender political religion that runs contrary to everything gender political that she has absorbed all her life. This will be profoundly disturbing to her, since she will fear that this monoconscious, biconscious issue that her masculistic, biconscious boyfriend keeps raising to her may cause the relationship to die. If the feminist girlfriend sees her boyfriend as the man she wants to have children with, then the threat of losing him, of seeing him just walk away from her, claiming that she is an MFB, and hence unworthy of him, then she may feel profoundly threatened, since she may lose not just her boyfriend, but also the children she may have had with him in future years. And it is that is so profoundly threatening to her. It terrifies her. She will thus become extremely disturbed and may learn to hate the masculine views of her boyfriend and reject and deny them, since they cause her so much stress and disbelief. I suspect that maybe a quarter of such biconscious boyfriend, monoconscious girlfriend relationships will survive, as the upper quarter of women are creative enough, that is, have sufficient openness of mind, openness to new ideas and experiences, that their personalities can cope with the new masculist ideas, that is, new to her. For the other 3/4 of such relationships, I fear for them. I'm predicting that millions of couples in the coming decade, as masculinist ideas spread throughout the culture, will break up. That is, the boyfriend will just walk out, disgusted by the two-faced hypocrisy of his former girlfriend, who feels that women, that feminists, have the right to criticize men for the way that men oppress women, which is something that he does not deny, given that he is biconscious, that is, he has also had his feminist consciousness raised since he started off as a male feminist, having accepted the claims of the feminists that men oppress women, by looking at the evidence of feminist claims, having read lots of feminist books and watched feminist videos, so he knows what the feminists are talking about. But when he sees that his own girlfriend remains closed-minded about the claims of the masculists, then this monoconscious bigotry on her part will really disgust him. And this contempt for her sexist hypocrisy will fester and fester, to the point where he loses patience with her and finally just walks out the door and out of her life. The above phenomenon will be similar to what happened in the 70s, when millions of feministed women divorced their husbands because their conservative husbands could not adapt to the new second-wave feminist ideas that women should stop being doormat housewives and become careerists like men, demanding the same status as men. Those rather conservative men who grew up seeing women as housewife nurturers of men were profoundly threatened by the changes they saw in their wives, and felt threatened by feminist ideas that were so vigorously infecting the minds of their wives. These men resisted, and so did their wives. So when no-fault divorce was legislated by the feminists in the 70s, millions of women chose to ditch their traditional conservative husbands and went their own way. I see a repeat of the above in the coming decade, but with the roles reversed. This time, it's the women who will feel threatened that is, by the rise of masculist ideas, ideas that will force women to grow up, to FIP up, that is, become FIPs, equals financially independent persons, by bothering to get a career-competent education so as not to act as a fluffy on some gullible manslave. Let us assume that this prediction comes true. What consequences will it have? I can think of several. One is that as large numbers of men walk out on their monoconscious feminist girlfriends, these girlfriends will talk amongst themselves, asking themselves and their good female friends, "What happened? Why did he leave me? Why did he feel so strongly about his masculist ideas that he was prepared to dump me? Doesn't he know that men oppress women far worse than vice versa? That his masculist claims seem ridiculous, even ignorant to me?" As this collective dumping becomes commonplace, the issue will be taken up by women's magazines, which will feature articles on the topic written by female journalists who know something about masculism, who have bothered to do a bit of homework by watching masculist videos, reading masculist books, etc., and begin to understand what the masculists are talking about, and why masculists are so angry at monoconscious feminists who have taken over the divorce courts and made divorce, and hence marriage and paternity, such a shitty deal for men, that 2/3 of young men in many countries now reject marriage and paternity, preferring to live the MGTOW, that's men going their own way, lifestyle, and spending their money on themselves. These female feminist journalists will understand that a young man will utterly reject facing a 1 in 4 chance of losing his kids in the hated fluffy feminist controlled divorce courts if he is stupid enough to become a married father. By degrees, the smarter monoconscious feminist journalists will become biconscious, gradually absorbing and understanding masculist ideas and gaining an intuitive feeling for why masculists are so angry at fluffies, seeing them as manslavers, as vermin to be wiped out, and hating the fluffy feminists who control the divorce courts with an even greater venom. In time, these biconscious articles, written by feminist journalists, will cause the women they are writing for to become more biconscious themselves, as they are more exposed to masculist ideas. This is the end of part 1.